Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer. It is a thrilling Thursday to talk about chiropractic. I also want to talk to you about progress reports. And today's topic is precisely that. This is such an essential part of your training process, and with really how to structure your practice. The topic being progress reports. What does that mean? That means that your team and yourself are measuring specific aspects of your company, of your chiropractic practice, and getting regular reporting in terms of your progress. Progress, what does that mean? That means we're making progress towards our goals, towards our objectives. And I thought I would kick off our topic today with an excerpt from this book, which I highly recommend. And it's just a small little book. It doesn't take long to read it, but it's a great book. It's called OKR, and it says, Master the Performance Framework that Google perfected. And this was a company that went from basically 2 people or 40 people in the early days up to 60,000 people. All of us have heard of Google. It's become just a standard term that we use in our day-to-day lives. And the way that they grew the company was really based on progress reports, or as they call them, objective key results. So I want to read to you just a quick passage out of here to kick us off. And what it says is, so OKR, objectives and key results. So objectives answer the question what, and therefore define the top priorities. Now, if you asked your team right now, what are your top priorities? They might say, it's to build $1 million practice. Or they might say, my top priority is to make it to work on time. So there can be a wide range of answers, but the key being, how do we measure these steps that we take in the practice in our day-to-day work that we do towards these objectives? So here it says, here are the main principles of how objectives work. Objectives are single sentences and concise goals that set priorities. Apart from the ultimate objective, there are normally annual and quarterly objectives. Okay, the ultimate objective is to spread chiropractic to the world and share it with as many people as possible. But there are also annual and quarterly objectives within your practice. Now, we've shown you those through the goals tracking system, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. The next says, objectives set high and challenging goals. We want to challenge our team to pursue goals that are lofty, right? We want to serve a lot of people. We want to work hard, but we want to feel good about the work that we're doing. So they should be challenging. Number 4, as objectives are created to build clarity over priorities, there cannot be more than 3 to 5 objectives annually for each part of the company. So when you divide up your practice in DC Trainings, we've given you 5 key parameters, 5 key objectives from new patients, report of findings, patient visits, care plan renewals, and revenue. Those are our 5 objectives that we measure in DC Trainings to determine the ultimate success of the practice. Objectives are immeasurable. They are meant to determine the direction of the company where most energy will be spent within a given period of time. So where are we spending our energy? Where are we focusing on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, and ultimately on an annual basis? Objectives are inspirational and compelling goals that move the company or person from their comfort zone. However, they are still achievable with extraordinary performance. Now, there's another quote I want to share with you that says, you cannot be both comfortable and grand at the same time. So in that what I just read you, we want to move beyond our comfort zone so that we can stretch our capacity and really achieve wonderful results or achieve extraordinary performance. Objectives are open to the entire company. All company OKRs, objectives and key results, including the ones of the CEO, are open for the view of the whole company. Now, in chiropractic, we have our practices. We don't have a huge company like Google, but it is important that we share our goals openly. So I ask you, doctors, how many people on your team right now know exactly what their objectives are, and are they measurable? Okay. And this creates transparency and community for the entire company to align to. In chiropractic, of course, we're big in alignment, aren't we? We want proper alignment. Objectives are time bound. OKR is the growth management system for companies or individuals to create the priorities, how to achieve them, and within the predetermined time frame. Now, I want to read that one more time. It's the management system for companies or individuals to create the priorities, how to achieve them, and within the predetermined time frame. So, as an example, with my team, I meet with my team. We've been having these meetings right now. We know how we're doing so far for the year. We're coming into the final months of 2023. And I've already been asking them, what is it that you want to accomplish in 24? What do we want to do next year? What do we want to accomplish? Let's make sure it's a stretch, but attainable with some hard work, of course, but let's make those numbers happen, but let's set those numbers first. Then the next one. Objectives are actionable by the team independently. This is particularly important for larger companies since interdependency may result in gridlocks among teams to achieve the goals, right? So we want to have back to the beginning. Objectives are actionable by the team independently. So each person has specific objectives that contribute towards the objectives of the larger picture. So within, for example, say patient visits, that's our objective for the practice. But within that objective, individuals will know how many people are on the schedule, how many calls have I done for the missed appointments, how many of those missed appointments were rescheduled, what was the show ratio of the number of patients that were scheduled to actually how many showed up to their appointment. Those are the individual objectives, and those are important. Last one, for organization level OKRs, so top level objectives, the senior leadership must personally commit to the process of becoming an example for the entire company. Now, doctors, what does that mean? You've got to walk your talk, right? You have to walk your talk. You have to, if you're going to set something in place, it's got to start with you. And that's really important. Now, that was objectives. The next part is key results. And I'm not going to read the steps for all the key results, but I'll just say this. Objectives answer the question, what? What are we going to do? Key results ask the question, how? How are we going to do this? So I just read you the parameters of the objectives. And what I'll finish with is that you and your team individually can come up with the KRs, the key results, and that's the how. And they are the means to reach the objectives. And therein lies a little excerpt from this great book that you can use. So let's jump into our topic today. And as always, I want to welcome your questions. If there's anything that I can answer for you with DC trainings, I want to make sure we finish our webinar today with no unanswered questions. So I'll jump right in here, and let me just move a couple things over so that if you do have a question, I will see it pop up. So let's jump through, and we're already in week 3 of module 6. So marching right along. I'm hoping you're enjoying the process of this. And at any time, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Let me know. Let's not let anything cause any subluxations in your progress. And we'll keep your practice growing full speed. Okay, so with progress reports, I'm sorry, and I want to make an announcement. The team development seminar is coming up, and this is our live seminar. It's one of 2 live seminars in 2024. So I want to make sure that all of you are aware. It's on January 13th. It will be in Santa Cruz. Dr. Glenn, I got a message from Dr. Levine that you'll be attending for that. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. So I just want to give you a shout out, say hello. I got that message. But I'm looking forward to seeing all of you at the live seminar. We're going to talk about how to develop a dynamic team. And I have a couple other surprises for you in terms of books and information that's new. And I'm excited to share that in that seminar. But that'll be January 13th, 2024 in my office in Santa Cruz, where you'll be able to see how this whole flow works, how the team operates, and how we do what we do, and how it works so well. So please mark your calendars and plan to be in Santa Cruz for that event. BJ Palmer said record keepers are record breakers. Now, we don't know what the score is if we don't track the score, right? If we're not counting, if you're in basketball and you're not counting how many times that ball goes through the hoop, you're not going to know what your score is. So it's really important that you're tracking your scores to know how well you're doing towards your objectives, right? So record keepers are record breakers, straight from BJ Palmer, the developer of chiropractic. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. Now, I've given you specific materials in your binder with DC trainings. This is one of them. This is the weekly report. And what this report does, this is one of the few things within DC trainings that you have to fill it out by hand and you have to track it each day. It will just trust me on this. This is something I use every week. In fact, I'll show you. This is how accessible my weekly report is at all times. This is my current weekly report from last week. It has our totals. This is the minutes and notes that I've been taking on those numbers just for this week. These are the items. And all of these items will be reviewed in our meeting next Monday. And we'll go through this. And this is how you have a very successful dynamic practice. Just as BJ Palmer said, record keepers are record breakers. So really make sure you're using this. Now, we take the numbers from the weekly report, and then those get transferred right over to the goals tracking system in DC trainings. And it's very simple. You just put the numbers in and it'll spit out the results. It'll let you know exactly how you're doing. So you just go to My Practice at the top of the page, then click on Calendar on the left side of the page. It will take you to a calendar. You select the date that you want to input the information and put your numbers right in there. And it'll track it to the individual. So not only are we talking about objectives for the team and your practice as a whole, but we're talking about specifically assigning measurable key results to each individual on your team, so that those people can be rewarded and praised and complimented and acknowledged for their hard work in terms of how it's contributing to the success of the practice, right? In my office, I have one CA who's responsible for new patients. Now, does that mean that other CAs don't answer the phone when a new patient calls? Well, of course they do. They answer the phone when a new patient calls. They book the appointment. They do the consultations with the new patients. They do the exams with the new patients. They take the x-rays, all of that. But there's one person that I go to if there's a problem or an issue, or if there's numbers that are really doing well and I want to find out how those numbers are doing so well. There's one person I go to as my point person, and that's called accountability, right? We want to make sure that that accountability is in place so that we can measure the results and we know what steps actually worked, what steps didn't work. And if things are going well, we can determine how things are going so well and continue that. Or we can also change it. If they're not going so well, we can make some changes. So that's the next step. So from the weekly report, we put the numbers into the daily results. And from there, the system spits out a summary, right? And this is just a summary. This is from a couple of years ago, but I just thought I'd throw this up here because it showed the full year. And this is showing the report of findings statistics where we're tracking well above the gold. The gold is our target line, which in this case would be 80%. We were tracking well above that 80% through the whole year, really tracking carefully our report of findings. Now up here, I can actually drop down the user and show you who did what, right? Which I will show you on the website in a few minutes, but it's that simple. So let me just kind of back up for a minute. You go from handwriting on the weekly report, which literally takes 2 minutes once a day. That's it. And I even have a person assigned to do that. So I don't actually personally write those numbers, but my CA knows it's her job to just spend that 2 minutes every day writing in the totals for that particular day. Those numbers then get transferred over to the goals tracking system in DC trainings, another 2 minutes. And then from there, it spits out the reports. And that's it. So we go from the weekly report to the goals tracking system and then the reporting system. And that's basically how this was operating from the quote I was reading you just a minute ago. So from there, we're able to really dial in. Now, these are our success rates for my office, just for for this year, October 23. The graph I showed you was from 2020, but these are my actual numbers from 2023. And something that we've done that's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up because I'm not sharing my screen. You guys are supposed to let me know when I'm not sharing my screen. Let me back up and share my screen with you. I was having a good time seeing all those great images and following along with them, but you need to be able to see that. Okay, so here's the weekly report. Here is the inputting your daily results right here on the calendar. I mean, once I went to calendar, then I did the input daily results. And once those numbers are in there, tracked down to the individual, then the graph spits out and we see exactly how we did in the big picture. I was also mentioning up here, you can do a drop down and check out the results of an actual down to the individual, but I'll show you that in just a minute. The next screen I popped up was the one that brings us currently to here. These are our success rates for 2023. So new patient, 93%, reported findings, 85, patient visits, 93, care plan renewals, 95, revenue, 90. Now, why is this important? Two reasons why this is important. It really makes sure that we're leveling the playing field between all the different practices and people who are part of this wonderful team called the DC Trainings team, right? We're all members of DC Trainings, and we can share these numbers with each other and know that if you're seeing 1,000 patients a week and I'm seeing 100 patients a week and we both feel like that's a good number for us, great. Then our success rate will reflect that individually. Am I hitting my goal? Whatever the goal is, if I'm hitting it, great. Let's celebrate that success. So new patient, 93%. Great. That means that I'm at 93% of my goal. And whether that's 100 patients a week or 1,000 patients a week, I can get excited because that's a strong A in the category of new patients. Now, there is a change that I made that I want to just share with you today, because the change is this. I've taught you in the past that you would adjust your goals quarterly depending on how you're doing towards the big picture for the year. So once a quarter, you can change your goals. The change that we made this year, and it's actually working really well, is that we set our goals at the beginning of the year and we don't change them. We set them at the beginning of the year because that's when we're most ambitious, we're most excited, we're looking at the big picture and planning for this beautiful, wonderful year of chiropractic. Let's go for it, team. Let's go for it. And as the year progresses, we're either right on track and doing great, as you see with some of the numbers, or some of the numbers become a little more challenging, right? Which we want. We want them to be challenging. So we've changed it into a grading system. So we just basically take that percentage, just like you did back in high school or college when you had grades. 93% is an A. That's a strong grade. And we change that system into just a grading system. So rather than adjusting our goals, if we come out at the end of the year and we have a 90% or higher grade for that particular focus, we high five and we all celebrate together. We're doing great, 90%. Or if it's above 100%, that's even better. But the goal is a stretch. So for us to go over 100% means that we didn't challenge ourselves high enough. So we actually like to be in the 90th percentile, not over 100 percentile. So that's the change that we've made. And you'll see that reflected in the screen here, which is why I wanted to share this with you, because going back to the way I just framed that, there's two exceptions to what I just shared with you. The first exception is the report of findings. Report of findings, it measures based on how many new patients came in to how many signed up for care plans, full 12-month care plans. So if 8 out of 10 new patients that came in sign up for a full year care plan and commit to care, that's a home run. So for report of findings, ROF, we want that to be at 80% or above. We rarely, if ever, see 100% with report of findings because we are recommending a year of care. I mean, if a patient comes in hurting and you recommend one visit to adjust them and then they feel better and leave, you can feel good about 100% success rate, but did the patient really get the benefit of longer care? No. So we want to really structure this in a way that we're designing a successful business model, meaning lots of lifetime care patients coming in, referring friends, referring their family in, and continuing with chiropractic care. And this is how we measure that. But we won't hit 100% for that. anything over 90% anything over 80% is actually considered great. So we want to be in the 0.8 to 1.0 or 80% to 100% range. So again, 85%, fantastic. 93%, fantastic. We're doing good. Patient visits, 93%, again, fantastic. We're doing good. We're in that A range. It's a stretch to get to 100%, but we're still accomplishing our goals. Care plan renewals is the second of the two exceptions. For care plan renewals, we want 90% or above. And in this case, it's at 95. So again, we're doing great. But when you consider what a care plan renewal means, it's when a patient finishes a care plan and then re-signs up for another full 12-month care plan. Well, for every 10 care plan renewals, we abbreviate that CPRs, we generally don't see, in fact, we almost always don't see 100% of those patients signing up for another 12-month care plan. It's better than the report of findings, but it's not quite as good as 100%. So for the care plan renewal statistic or success rate, 90% and above is considered to be successful. So that's what we aim for. And that has been consistently the best way to measure that. I'll just pause for a minute. If you have any questions on that, please let me know, because I want to make sure you're able to utilize the tools that we have in DC trainings with the success rate reports. Last one on the screen is the revenue at 90%. Once again, it's a big stretch for us. We've got big goals. And if we're at 90% or above, I'm happy. My team's happy. They're getting bonuses. We're all doing great. So that's where we like to be. If we were at over 100%, as somebody on our call right now has, which I need to recognize, Dr. Dancy, I know you're at 100, I think it's 137% success rate on your revenue. High five to you. Fantastic. My suggestion, just to stretch the boundaries a little bit and to push yourself, would be to raise your goal, because you're at 137%. That's really great. But I think that the goals maybe want to be a little more of a stretch so that you're in that 0.9 to 1.0 rather than 1.3 or 1.4. Okay. So anyway, so that's just a suggestion there for you. All right, let's keep going though. So once we've taken those numbers, and the reporting system in DC trainings will show you the numbers, the success rates. Another way to do that is we have a blank success rate report on the website that you can download and you can just fill it out. And the reason why I mention that is for two reasons. Number one, if you want to fill one out and create one of your own, you can customize it. And I'll let you know that I do this in my own practice. We have one that we've been tracking this year, and it's called show ratio. So we look at how many patients were scheduled in a given day and how many that were scheduled arrived for their appointment. It's kind of like the report of findings success rates, but it's specifically for patient visits. And what it lets me know as the PDC is that my team is tracking who's scheduled and how many of those people arrived. Because, for example, if a patient starts care with you and you set up their whole care plan, so their appointment is on that schedule on a regular basis, however often they are scheduled. So we've got them plugged in. And a month into their care, they discontinue. Maybe they move out of town. And so those appointments are still left on the schedule. That can artificially throw off what you're expecting to do for that day, right? Because their appointments are still there. It's artificially inflating your patient visits that are scheduled. And yet we already know that patient's not going to come in because their appointments are because they've moved out of the area. So we want to make sure that schedule is really effectively managed, right? Let's cut out the fat. Let's remove the appointments that are obsolete. Let's make sure that who's on that schedule we actually expect to come in on that day. So my recommendation is that you want to have your schedule or your show ratio in the definitely above 90%, but ultimately it's actually closer to 95%, meaning that for all the patients that are scheduled for that day, 95% of them should come in. Otherwise, you might have some extra appointments on there that shouldn't be there anymore, and they were left over after the patient stopped care. So I just wanted to share that with you as an example, because we give you this customizable form on the website that you can use to really track any success rate that you want. Another one that we use in my office, because we have two massage therapists that work with me, and we track how many massages were scheduled, how many were booked, how many came in, we track the success rates for the massage schedule with these reports. So very applicable. And what does this lead us to? Objectives and key results. Right back to the book that I showed you earlier. Okay, so anyway, so that's that report summary. I'm going to just gloss through this real quick. I covered this in the seminar video last time. Well, actually, no, this is worth repeating. I know not all of you have seen this, so I do want to repeat this. This is an example that I want to show you of how to really manage your success rates in a way that you can quickly recognize issues and solve them before it starts to affect your overall picture, or more importantly, your goals for the year. So this is an example of our patient visits in my office, and I'm sharing my numbers with you. I just know that I don't share your numbers with anybody. They're completely confidential. I'm an open book because I want to help you as best I can. So this is some numbers of patient visits, and these are this is our goal for each month from June through December. Now, on this side, it shows what the actual numbers were. So, for example, I'll just give you an example here. In the month of August, we had 91% success rate as an cumulative average for the year. Okay, so for the whole year, we were at 91% of our goal for the year. Now, it went to 92%. Now, we wanted to change this because we were recognizing we want to get it closer to 100%. And so we sat down and we had a meeting realizing that our goals were not really tracking where we want them to go. We weren't going to actually hit our goal for the year like we wanted to. So we had a meeting and we plugged in some action steps that were changes from what we were doing already. And based on those action steps, we all decided, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to change that, we're going to add this, we're going to remove that. And we all agreed to these specific action steps that we were going to take to make those numbers different, to increase our numbers towards our goal. Well, based on that, we saw that one more step to that. We had to change our goal because we were actually behind schedule. So since we were behind schedule, we had to increase the goal for the remaining couple months and make sure that in order to hit our goal for the year, that we would actually see a bigger number in those remaining months. So we knew exactly to the month, actually down to the week and even to the day, what we needed to be able to serve, how many patients we needed to see in order to still reach our goal by the end of the year. So we made those corrections, and what happened? We jumped up to 109%. Actually, I think my circles are off a little bit, but we jumped up to 109%, and ultimately we reached our goal. We actually exceeded our goal for the year. So as BJ Palmer said, record keepers are record breakers. If you're not watching the numbers, you won't know your score. You won't know how well you're doing. And if you're not setting goals and you're not setting clear objectives for your team, then they may as well just clock in and clock out, and that's all you're going to get. Or we can all stay busy. Now, let me emphasize this. And I have a busy practice. I know, Dr. Glenn, you're in a busy practice now, which is exciting. And I see Dr. Knitsch, your team's on. We have busy practices. It's easy to stay busy. But in the busyness of things, how effective are we truly being? How effective are we really adhering to what we need to do to serve the most people, to have fun, but ultimately to make sure our practice is running smoothly and basically on autopilot, right? So those are the things these are the steps that we need to take to measure how well we're doing and have objective key results. I keep holding up this book, but I'll tell you, this is worth picking up. It's just by the way, Dr. Knitsch, John, you have shared some amazing books with me. Another one that I'll just give a shout out because you shared it with me. I think it came from your lovely wife, and that's called Measure What Matters. Great book. I've read it twice. Very good book, Measure What Matters. And it actually led me to this book. The Measure What Matters book is a little thicker. It's not something that I would just tell my team they need to read it. This one, my team's reading it. And they are using the tools in this book to build their own key results and action steps within their own areas of the practice. So it's really, really been a fantastic book. So again, thank you, Dr. John, for that. Okay, so let's keep going because I want to share this with you, and then we're going to jump over to the website in a minute. So anyway, so here's the basis of what I just showed you. Success rates will show actual results when compared to the goals you create. And that's why my team and I made the change this year. We're going to set the goals for the whole year, and we're going to stick to those goals. And at the beginning of the year, when our minds are running wild and we're super ambitious and looking forward to an exciting new year, we're going to stick to those goals. And if we achieve 90% or higher, we hit the bullseye. That's where we want to be. Okay. Gives us a stretch, a target, and it allows us to fill in our action steps as we go. So use the tools that you have with DC trainings. Then the next slide here says use existing numbers from your practice. Take action now. So if you're not sure where to start, and I get this question all the time. I actually have a new doctor with DC trainings I'll be on the phone with today. So when you're starting this and you're thinking, well, what goals can I set? Like, how big can I go? How small should I start? Where do I go with this? Just take numbers from your existing practice. And for this, I'm actually going to just share an example with one of our members who's on the call, Dr. Glenn. So Dr. Matt, you're moving into a practice that's a very successful practice, right? And based on the numbers that are in the practice right now, that's where you start your success rates. And from there, you can decide, do I want to grow those numbers? Do I want to change those numbers? Do I want to keep the numbers the same? But that's why I put that slide up there to emphasize that point, which is just take the numbers that you're at now. If you're not clear on what goals you want to set for yourself, you can just use the numbers that you have right now, right in front of you, and start to track those numbers. And from there, you don't have to just maybe trust me on this, but you'll crystallize this image of where you want to go. You might be happy with where you're at right now, and that's great. At least you'll know what got you there, and you'll know what it takes to stay there. You might want to grow the numbers. Fantastic. You'll know where you're at now, which will give you the springboard to take it to where you want to go. Either way, the key is to take action now and start plugging in those numbers and using the tools that you have to track progress. And that's with these progress reports. Okay, so unfortunately, I have to bring up a quote from Albert Einstein. Of course, not unfortunately because it's from him, but unfortunately because this is something that we can fall trap to, and that is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. So here we are about to launch into 2024. What I don't want you to do is get all excited about 2024. Yay, here we go. And then do the exact same thing, but expect to have the best year ever, right? It's not going to happen. So we want to start using the tools that we have to chart a course, to plan ahead, make some changes so we don't end up in a vicious cycle. And based on those changes, we will see ourselves successful. We'll be taking care of our patients. We'll be having balance in our lives, and we'll be having the practice of our dreams. So I want to share one other thing here about compound interest. And this is, in terms of progress reports, one of the things that we want to make progress with is just our financial stability. So this is another quote. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So compound interest is important when it comes to understanding your debt load. And this is sort of a tangent from the standard DC trainings focus of training. But one of the benefits of having a successful practice is that you're going to be more profitable. You're going to have more disposable income that you can choose to do what you want with it. And I want to make sure that we cover this because it may help you to make sure that extra income goes into an asset category rather than a liability category. And this one's also for you, Dr. Dancy. It's great to have you on the call. So an asset is something that makes you money, right? It brings money in. A liability is something that takes money from you. And if you picture yourself as a bank, they borrow people's money and then they earn interest on that money. So they're growing the money based on the interest. So let's look at how that works. So you're the person who has a mortgage, for example, a 30-year mortgage. Let's say the amount is $1 million. We'll take this middle one. The principal, $1 million. And over the course of a 30-year mortgage, you will have spent an additional $800,000 in interest on that $1 million that you bought the house for. So what started with $1 million as an expense grew to almost $2 million that you paid to buy that house. Now, who's winning in that game? Obviously, you're winning because you have the house. That's great. But as far as who loaned the money, they're making the money on you. They almost doubled their income over the course of that mortgage. So this can be a trap, right? So we want to get out of that trap. We want to reverse this and actually help you to start making money and reverse that equation so that you're the one earning interest and making the money. So here's some examples, and I'm just going to take the middle one again. Let's say that you're saving $1,000 a month. If you're a CA, put aside 500, put aside 100, whatever it is that you can put aside. Let's put aside some money. Now you can invest that money in different ways. I'm just going to use a real general term here. Let's say 4.5%. And you might think, wow, that's a big stretch. Interest rates are rising. I just contacted a local bank in town. It's called Edward Jones, and they have a CD. It's a short-term CD that you can invest your money in, and it pays 4.5%. So this is actually a realistic number that we can use. So let's say you're saving that money. Think back to the mortgage, right? For every dollar you spend, you're actually losing another 80 cents on that dollar that you spend over the course of time. Well, in this case, if we fast forward, we go in reverse. If we take $1,000 and put it in the bank at current interest rates, over 20 years, that 1,000 becomes almost $400,000. So the money that you invested and the interest that it's earning while it's in the bank can really start to magnify. As Albert Einstein said, one of the most powerful principles that he knows of is compounding interest, even more than his E equals MC squared. That was his famous equation, right? Albert Einstein. But this is even more powerful than that, the power of compounding interest. And someday we're all going to be at the retirement age. And as self-employed chiropractors, we want to make sure that we have our financial security and our nest egg where we want it to be. So this is just an example for you. Maybe this is a motivation to save as much as you can, even if you're new in practice. Save, save, save. Okay. Now, I'm sorry. Let me go back up. We're going to jump into this later. We'll come back to this. But just as a rule of thumb, what I recommend is that you save 10% of your income. For every dollar that you earn, put 10 cents into some type of savings. Now, if you put it in a bank account right now, you're not going to earn much for interest. But you can find banks like I mentioned, Edward Jones, or your local bank, and maybe put it into a CD, something where it's not locked in. You can move it out if you want, but those are actually paying much better interest rates than just a standard savings account. And you can put your money in there and just watch it grow. And that'll add up over the years and give you that nest egg and that security so that when retirement time comes, you've got the money to retire on. Okay, so from there, next week, we'll get into our next topic, which is referral marketing. We're going to go into a series now over about 5 or 6 weeks. Where we're specifically going to focus on marketing your practice. Right? We started out with the first part, which is goals. We're going to come back and dive into that at the end as well. But for now, we're going to shift over next week into the into the marketing series for how to market your practice. Okay, so I wanted to show you, let me go back to sharing my screen. On the website, here's the samples that I have for you to look at. And I put up a little note here about the marketing goals, but I'm looking at these materials right here. There's also 2 intro videos. One is an intro to progress reports, where I talk about how this reporting system is so important. The next one is on success rate reports, and I talk about how to use the success rates to track your progress. So 2 little intro videos, and then as far as the materials, we have the sample report. This is the success rate report, and this is another one of those where you can use the blank one on the website to customize what it is that you want to track. So this is the show rate or show ratio of report of findings. In other words, for every new patient that comes in, well, actually, I think I can do it this way. For every new patient that comes in, how many of those return for report of findings, right? If you have 10 new patients that come in and all 10 come back for the report of findings, that's great. You made a good first impression. Out of that 10, 8 will start care or more, and you're off and running. If you have 10 new patients that come in and only 5 of them come back for report of findings, well, that's a low show ratio, and that's a subluxation in your practice. So we have that for you on there. That's a sample. You can view that. We also have a blank one. Once again, as I said, you can define whatever you want on here and then put in your action steps and start to track progress towards your goals. So there's the blank one for you. And, oh, I'm sorry. Well, I got rid of it already. On that, I want to just say that there was one part too where you can actually assign who's accountable in your office. So you actually put a name with that success rate report, so you know exactly who it is that's responsible, and then the two of you can work on that together. Next up is the sample weekly report. So in this one, I showed you part of it on the slide, but on this one, we have our new patients, the goal, scheduled, and the actual. Same for report of findings. That one's scheduled, arrived, and how many started. So a little bit of a different nomenclature there. And that's for report of findings and care plan renewals. Those two have a little difference. But for new patients, new patients, patient visits, and down at the bottom here, revenue, there's a goal and an actual, and your success rate is calculated based on those numbers. Now, I want to jump over to the website and show you something here, because this is a question I often get, and that is, how do I structure my who's going to be managing this each of these items. So when we go into the My Practice tab of the website right here, oh, there it goes, and then go into administration and drop down to focuses. On this page is where you'll assign who is responsible for which focuses. Okay. So, and that's important there, because that way they know what they're responsible for, and you can track the success rates based on who's responsible for what. Then the other question I get is I'll bring this back up. How do I put those numbers in? Well, there's two parts to putting the numbers in. The first one is to put your goals in. So we're in Q4 of 2023. You would just put in your goals here. How many new patients do I want to see on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? And that will spit out your goals at the bottom and let you know what your quarterly and yearly goals are based on the numbers that you put in on each day. And the three areas that we track are patient visits, new patients, patient visits, and revenue. Report of findings and care plan renewals are different. We don't put goals in for those, because those are already set. We want to have either 80% conversions for report of findings, 90% conversions for care plan renewals. Those are set across the board. So we don't really need to put in goals for those. We just want to know how many arrived for their appointment and how many started care, as opposed to new patients, patient visits, and revenue. We want to have clear goals. We want to know, based on our actual numbers, how close did we come to those goals. So those are slightly different, and that's why those are in there. Once they're there, then you go into the calendar, you pick your date, and from there you can actually plug in the numbers. My computer's thinking for a little while. There we go. You can plug in your numbers, and you can actually see how you're doing and who's doing what. So that's the flow on the website. And from there, obviously, it starts with the weekly report, which we have that filled out, and we also have a blank one for you. You can choose those off the website. Okay, so I covered quite a bit today. From there, any questions? So for everybody, yes, happy holidays to all of you, and definitely want to thank you for being part of DC Trainings. I really appreciate our community that we have and the culture that we've created with DC Trainings, and really being focused on helping our patients go through the holidays with the best health that they can. This is a time of year when there's more stress. There's poorer diets in general. I know I had 2 helpings of pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving Day. It was delicious. So maybe some of us, or most of us have probably seen some slipping and checking, or slipping at least, with our dietary consumption. So anyways, going through the holidays, there's more stress. There's maybe not such great diet. Maybe the weather's colder. We're not exercising as much. So for many of our patients, this is a tough time. And for us to be able to have a systemized practice, a streamlined practice that can take care of our patients in an efficient, comfortable, affordable way, so they can get the best chiropractic care, which will then alleviate that stress from their nervous system, I mean, it's a win-win all the way around. So during your adjusting of your patients, be sure to share that with them. I'm helping you take, and it's kind of a pun, but we'll take the stress off your spine or the stress off your nerves, because stress gets on your nerves, right? But helping our patients to go through the holidays with a stronger immune system, stronger health system, and really it's a win-win all the way around. So again, thank you for being part of DC Trainings. I will talk to you next week. And as always, let me know if you have any questions. dctrainings@gmail.com. Thanks again.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.